Good morning, Predicted Trades family. Hope everybody's doing well. To start, we'll just do a quick recap. Yesterday on ES, we opened in our outer shaded region, which can kind of be exhaustion. We reached out of it just enough to tag that 4260 key level. Then we've played puts, played the fade back. Caught a little bounce midday, but rejected VWAP for further selling, giving us another chance at those shorts. And I'll go ahead and remove this, just so we can see how awesome these key levels were. Rejected that 4260, and if you held or reloaded at that VWAP rejection, we made it down to that 4205 key level. Wicked it a few times, closed above it, having a little gap up, but can very easily fill this gap back down with a quick little dip. And just to recap a little further, one of the trades we called out midday was playing QQQ. QQQ reached outside of its squeeze cloud just enough to tag our purple hashed line, providing that short rejection opportunity. And at the moment that QQQ topped out and ES topped out at 4260 was perfectly when the 325 put on QQQ tagged our bottom beast and burger bottom. We can see this 58-cent mark was the top of that burger bottom, and we can see low of day was perfectly 58 cent to the cent. Those went from that 58.60 cents up to $1.80, so well over a triple. And then that VWAP rejection, that pop up to test and reject VWAP on everything, got these back to their open level at $1, where they ended up going to $2.60. So another double and then a little. And if you held from here, a full 4x yesterday. We also hit the SPX 4210s. Oh, I can't remember the exact entry. I think it was like $1 to $5, and then it came back to 50 cents and ran to 6 or 7. So provided some awesome opportunity over there as well. But enough of a recap, and let's talk about what we can see for today. Let me pull up the economic calendar, like we do. And while I'm doing that, let me at least say we've had a great week in predicted trades. It's Friday, so you know what I'm going to say. It's time to size down, have fun, play with profit. Don't ruin your week on a Friday. This week we had our CPI, our jobless claims. Today we just have import price index that'll be dropping at 8:30. Probably won't have a huge impact. Then we have that 10 a.m. University of Michigan. Like we see, it usually doesn't hold too much of an impact, but we have had days where this is what gets released at 10 a.m. and it ends up being a sell-off kind of day. Sometimes they just need something, a reason to do what they already intended to do. So, always good to look towards next week to see what we have coming. Building permits, housing on Tuesday, some retail stuff on Wednesday, jobless claims. So yeah, not much in the economic calendar going into next week. It will be option expiration week, OPEX. So that's one thing to keep in mind for today. We have a let's see, 1 hour and 2 hour squeeze that has formed. You know, pretty much at the lows of yesterday and that 42.05. And the top of those squeezes up at about 42.50. Darn it, one thing I did want to cover, I'm sorry. When we got in that Q trade yesterday, this is just something I wanted to cover for everybody because I know that sometimes folks can get trapped in some trades that they took at the moment of a rejection, but then we end up going further, right? Some of us entered right at this rejection, and some of us waited for that bounce to get in. That's kind of the retest, right? We were expecting a bounce to get back to high a day, and it rejected and gave out before it got there. So when we look at the option, you know, it tapped 58 cents and started going, but then gave us a little pullback, and I know a number of us loaded up here at about 65, 70 cents. Point being, you know, you have to have orders out for these kinds of taps, but a lot of times the majority of us will wait for that retest, pick it up for just a few cents more, and still catch that journey. So on a Friday, sometimes, or you know, on a Friday, I definitely recommend that we should wait for those retests and not be too quick with the trigger. But ultimately, we've got our squeeze top and bottom range to play for today has been set, especially with pre-market high and low. So we'll play that range until it breaks. We are at that second Keltner and trying to hold above it pre-market. So let's see if we can hold that 42.18 and push off of it to get to the squeeze tops and our zone above. If we start to lose that Keltner during the cash session, likely coming down to this squeeze bottom to test 42.05. If we start to break down today and lose 4,200, first, you know, I've got a zone here, obviously, as the first target, but ultimately that daily 8 is now sitting right by that 4165, 4170, making a target zone below. But if we can hold that 4205, take out this 4237, we can make our way back to yesterday's high in a bid to get to our get through our zone to that third Keltner and that psych level of 4,300. In Q. On NQ, we have our hourly squeeze just above that 13,400 and above that pre-market high. Our 2 hour squeeze back up at that 13,500 in this zone above. And as you can see, that 312 or 13,300 provided support yesterday to stop that slip. So if we can't stay above this 350, if we can't stay above this 358 like we're trying to hold pre-market, and we lose this trend line from overnight, likely going to retest that 312, 300 psych level and squeeze bottoms. But if we can hold here or here and start to push, looking to get back to that squeeze top around 420 and to push through it to the next squeeze top around 500. Ultimately, the goal for further continuation, once we get through our 531 and yesterday's high, is to get up to this zone above. Let's see, we got a 300 ATR. It's a little bit out of an ATR's reach, at least where we're starting today. Yesterday it was kind of within reach. But we could easily stay in this range today with the squeeze top and bottom, right? If we start to break down and lose 300 and the squeeze bottom, then it's likely back to 220 where the daily 8 has caught up to, and that 150 and daily Keltner are just below as well. So we've got some targets should we start going to the downside. Ready. All right. They're ready. Almost made it to that daily 200 yesterday, but stopped shy and rejected that daily Keltner and rolled back over. I called this out in the morning and kind of timed the market rolling over in the short with the ready because it was on a nice up trend and trajectory. Excuse me. What are you doing? There we go. We were on a nice uptrend and trajectory to get up to that daily Keltner. And just like, not trying to call the top, but hitting that retest, the ruddy fell to the trend line, tried to get going a couple of times and couldn't. Same with ES and NQ. Once they topped out, they had that little pop, and that's where a lot of us re-entered on that pop rejection. For the ready, I was also watching this trend line, and it gave out around the same time. So it's really nice when everything can align properly like that, and you can perfectly time all of the indices rolling over. But back to where we could go today. Daily Keltner and 200, which are now closer together. If we can get through yesterday's high and that daily 200, yeah, we're at third Keltner already. So, next stops would be 250. And, excuse me. If we start to give out this trend line down to squeeze bottoms, 1970, 1966, if that gives out back to the daily 8, 1943. Ready looking the same. Let's see if we could hold the trend line from overnight. Then push up to these squeeze tops. If we can get through squeeze tops and yesterday's high, the goal is to get up to this 33,800, where the third Keltner and the daily 200 sit. If we give out trend line, we're coming down to test yesterday's low squeeze bottom at 32,200, which, as you can see over here, tried to be support. And yesterday, we almost got to it. So first stop would be that 200. If that gives out, back to the daily 8 and Keltner below around this 32,900. Yeah, 32,900 if we give out 33,200. Apple looking decently strong this morning. Already trying to take out that pre-market high. Already wicked down to yesterday's low and squeeze bottoms. Ultimately, if we can get through this squeeze top and yesterday's high, it's an attempt to get to this zone above, and basically that 172. If we give out trend line from overnight, first stop is this squeeze bottom back at 168. And if that gives out, the daily 8 has now caught up above 165. Will likely be landing around 166. That Keltner probably around 167. So those will be the targets to the downside. AMD very strong yesterday in the morning. Tagged that 99.23 level. Shot back above 100, fighting up above 102 before the market rolled over and brought it back to our zone. The daily 8 has now caught up with the bottom of that zone, that 97, 98, call it 98. So if we have a dip, likely coming to test yesterday's low and that daily 8 to try to catch a bounce, get back through 99.23, 100, and back to 102 above. If this 98 gives out, that daily 8, then we are likely falling right back to 96, where the daily 15 is now going to catch up to. And always worth noting where that daily 21 is, around 94. Amazon. Not much strength yesterday in the morning, and then was a good big part of rolling over. Let's see, already kind of wicked down to yesterday's low and back up. If we are going to have a dip, Amazon's going to retest 141 and 140. 140, very big key level. As long as we can hold, we can try to push back up to recover where we started the day yesterday at 144 in a bid to get to this daily 200, which will be pretty much right at 145 today. If we give out 140, back to the daily 8, which is now caught up above 138. And even if that can't hold, then we've got that first Keltner landing around 136. And probably worth noting that our daily 21 and 15 have caught up to the top of this earnings gap up. So if the whole market starts to roll over and start looking for moving average, reversion to mean type stuff, the target would be getting back to this 132, the top of this gap fill, and the daily 21 will be there in a couple of days, likely. BA. let's see if we can hold yesterday's low and squeeze bottom. Try and recover back up above 170 to get to 172. If it gives out, squeeze bottom in yesterday's low, back to the daily 8, and potentially back to this 164, where that 2-hour squeeze bottom sits. I'm sorry, 4-hour. Yep. Ooh, cat. Look at cat. So, started talking about this a couple of days ago, that now that it's holding those moving averages and slowly edging higher, we could get a good push to and through the daily 50. So we've gotten that the last 2 days. And yesterday, shot up and stayed above 193, even with the market slipping. So it could set up for a decent Friday, where we make a good strong push off of 93 to try to get back to that psych level of 200. But we got to get through 196, 197, where this Keltner sits and where all this consolidation was after that big run. But if we can start to push through, 197, could be a quick run up to 200. If we start to give out this 193 key level and market starts to roll, it's back to the daily 50 at 190. Google, also one of the weaker names yesterday in tech. Like Amazon, it just sat and then dropped. Unlike something like AMD that pushed and then came back. But ultimately, let's see if 119 can hold. As long as that can hold. I mean, I know we have the squeeze bottom down here a little bit below yesterday's low. But once we start getting there, the daily 8's also not going to be too far. So I'm more like, if we can hold 119, we could get a nice pop back through 120 to get to 121, 122. If we start to lose 119, 118 and a half, that daily 8's likely going to be pretty close to 118. And past that, the daily 21 is now above 115. And that's back where the 4-hour squeeze bottom is. So, if we have a rollover, today, Monday, whatever, daily 8, and then the 21, just gets us back to 115. But if we can keep trucking, 121, 122. GS. Oh, GS. That breakout got up and stayed above 350 yesterday. So the range is set 351, 356, right? If we can break 356, bid up to that psych level of 360. And if we start to break 351, likely back to 348. And then the daily 200, which is about 345. JPM, it's a made move, but it was mostly all pre-market, then sideways, then all pre-market and dump. So relative strength not as good as GS. If it can continue through 121, goal would be that third Keltner up at like 123 and a half. If it gives out 120, well, likely coming back to that 118. Or those moving averages back at 116. Oh, come on, toss. There we go. Meta. Alright, on Meta. Yesterday a little stronger in the morning, setting a new high before, and getting through the previous day's high before coming back. Let's see if we can hold 178 or yesterday's low, squeeze bottom, right? We can hold there, try to get back above 180 in a bid to get to the squeeze top, 185, where that next Keltner sits. If we start to give out yesterday's low, 176, likely coming back to all these stacked moving averages, back near 170. Microsoft. Has, kind of been strong this week. Yesterday was, a little slippage, but not too terribly weak. Yeah, I guess I should say it was one of the names kind of dragging us down, a little bit like Amazon and Google. As long as we can hold 286 in the squeeze bottom, we can get going back through 289 in a bid to get to that 291 and ultimately 295 where the daily 200 and daily Keltner, third Keltner sit. Close to around 87. Yeah, it's just a hair past an ATR to get up there. And, if it gives out squeeze bottom back to the daily 8. So Netflix, big relative strength. And yesterday morning continued with that. Got to that third Keltner. And then came back with the market. If we can hold 242, 241, we can try to push back up to 250 in that third Keltner. If we give out the bottom of that squeeze back to daily 8 and Keltner's below, back to 230. NVIDIA. Earnings still a couple of weeks out, although they already gave results. Was decently strong with AMD in the morning, then came back to its moving averages. So let's see if we can push off these moving averages again today at 180. In a bid to get back to 185, 186. And a journey to full recovery from that drop. If we start to give out that 180, yesterday's low, then we're probably coming back to the daily 21 at 176, or the daily 50 down at 170. QQQ. Trying to hold above 325, 324 and a half. Got a little 30-minute squeeze bottom there. If we start to give out 324 and a half, we're probably coming down to yesterday's lows and squeeze bottom around 323. If that gives out, down to the daily 21 near 320, and then our zone below. If we can hold up, above these squeeze bottoms, 324, we can try to push back to 330 outside of this squeeze top. And ultimately that 333, 334, where that third Keltner is sitting up above. Yeah, I don't have a lot of interest in Roku and Shop these days. Roku decently strong, then gave it back. Sitting at the daily 21, daily 8, and 15. Let's see if it can get going off these moving averages again. It'll try to get back to that daily 50 above this squeeze top. If it starts to give out these moving averages around 80, 80 and a half, probably coming down to lows of week and squeeze bottom for some tests. Shop. Decent move, but then all the way back to 40. Got a nice bounce and a pretty decent gap up. Let's see if it can hold 41, 40 and a half, and try to push back up to recover yesterday and get back to these highs. If it gives out that 40 and a half, likely coming back to test yesterday's lows, and the daily 8 will be stepping up right near there. Should that give out back to the 15 and 21 and 38. So no, I haven't covered this in a while. Let's see, when do they report? Same as NVIDIA. You know. If it gives out yesterday's low daily 8, coming back to the 21 and 15 below, if they can hold 166, try to push back and recover yesterday. Yeah, if it can break above 170, it could get a nice run. Right back up. SPX. So, filled its gap yesterday. Going to be having a little bit of a gap up. Going to be opening around 42.30-ish. So back in this zone. Let's see if it takes a quick dip to 42.18 just to shore up some support, or if it takes out for 42.34 quickly, then it can fight back up to yesterday's highs to try to push further. If we do have a dip to that 42.18, looking for that to hold. If it gives out, likely coming back to that 4200. And these levels, the daily 8 will probably be stepping up around 65 or 70. So, let's see what we get on SPX today. Let's see if that 42.18 can hold us if we do have a little dip. SPY. Key levels, tried to get going yesterday off of this 42.53. Ran into that third Keltner and got stuffed back. And came right back to that 419. Let's see if trend line from overnight can hold. Let's see if that little pre-market low can hold as well. If we have a dip, 420, 420.70, if those give out, coming back to squeeze bottoms for tests, maybe even to that next zone below. But if we can hold those pre-market lows, if we have a dip, or if we just keep trucking, goal is to get to this zone above and that squeeze top to try to push past to get to yesterday's highs, that third Keltner, which will likely also step up to that key level, 426. Tesla. Going to have their split on 825. If we look here, tomorrow, today, and then next week are the last full weeks before the split. the last weekly expiration before the split. So we shall see what we get on their 3-to-1 split. Everything's stacked very tight with all these squeezes. Let's see if 865 can hold. If it gives out, going to retest yesterday's lows and maybe get down to that 850 and the bottom of these squeezes. If 865 can hold, it'll be a fight to get back to 880, 890, 900, the top of the squeeze, the daily 200 at 910. And we've got, 918, 930 above as targets. From what we saw, there was a tweet from Elon saying he was done selling, but yesterday we had I think it was Watch that pointed out we had a big block seller that just kept holding it down. So, well, let's see. We are kind of coming into a wedge. You can connect these lows and these highs. Yeah, right there. So let's see what we get on this wedge today. It should break one way or the other. If we can hold that trend line, push through, trend line from the highs, and start to take out those highs, 900, 910, kind of the goal. But, if we break down, lose 850, that daily 21's right down there around 835. Still within our squeezes. So we could get down to the mean, stay in our squeezes, bounce back up, setting up a potential run for next week. So definitely watch those calls for next week. And VIX. Oh, VIX, you little minx. It got back over 20. That was a good sign yesterday. It tried to stay under 20, and then started to break over 20 as the market rolled. Excuse me. But ultimately, it pretty much rejected 2050 every time it got there. Yeah, it reached a little bit past at the end of the day. Closed below. We are back below 20 pre-market, and we do have some squeezes there. So, if we are going to see downside on the market today, we will likely see VIX tag these squeezes around 1975, 1990, and catch a bounce, get back over 20, start heading up to squeeze tops. And yesterday's highs were the daily 8 sits around 21, as well as that second Keltner down. No, sorry, first Keltner down. That's what it'll look like if we roll over on the market today. But if we're going to have some good continuation, we want to see VIX stay below 20. At the worst, stay below 20.5 in these squeeze tops. But ultimately giving out 20, going down to 19.5. Maybe even as far as 19 today. We do have that second Keltner around 1930. And the bigger goal, if we're going to have a good continuation and everything, all the indices get above their daily 200, we'll likely see VIX come down to 18 and this third Keltner. So that's it. Hopefully this was a helpful prep for everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Remember, it's a Friday. Let's size down. Let's have fun. Let's not ruin anything. And yeah, let's all be vocal. We'll be in the options members room today where everybody can chat. You can feel free to unmute yourself if you'd like. We've been doing good. Everybody in the room with amazing call-outs. I think I've seen great teamwork going around. A lot of folks taking, giving great call-outs, taking each other's trades. We're all reading and seeing everything the same lately. So kudos to everybody. I can tell you've been putting in the hard work because I see it every time you make a great call-out. Per the system, something off a beast at a key inflection point, good chance to roll over or to pop or whatever. Good job, everybody. We've had a good week. So let's have fun today, and we'll see it in the chat.